In fact, I think lobbyists are going to win for the next few years. But at some point, I think people are going to. It's happening in the EU.
Well,
sure.
I have a chapter where I meet Margaret Vestager.
She's great.
She's an amazing woman. She's
I first did not like her, but I'm coming around. Yeah.
So partly, I hope through my description of her.
Exactly.
I mean, I think that just as with Microsoft, the first kind of push against Microsoft in the 90s came from Europe, the same is true now. And I think the reality is with Vestager's work on antitrust, with the general data protection laws that are coming out.
GDPR is going to be a very interesting
It's a big deal, and
thing.
we should have the right as consumers to carry our data around with us. It's certainly not perfect. It will need to be refined, but these are the beginnings, and the Europeans are the most innovative when it comes to regulation. I think it's really important to remember that the best kind of regulation is innovative. And that we're kind of back in the 90s where we've got these 4 or 5 companies that dominate everything. It's very hard to do a startup. The only exit is being bought by them. They're squeezing a lot of innovation because they favor their own business models and ecosystems. And, you know, I talked to Brad Burnham, I talked to John Borthwick, I talked to a lot of leading venture capitalists, especially early stage people, and they don't like the situation any more than us.
Some of that, though, is them running for cover because they, like as Scott says, they're going to be gunning for you. So maybe now it'd be prudent.
Yeah, but these guys aren't making any money. I mean, okay, maybe sometimes their companies get sold to Apple.
It's pretty hard, though. If you're not going to compete against Google or Amazon. I mean, that's got to be almost impossible at this point.
Yeah, and when you invest in a company, you know the only way you're going to exit is by being acquired by them,
by the biggies.
Right.
So one of the truisms, and I'd like to know if you consider it the case, is that in the United States, generally antitrust regulation is to benefit consumers.
Yeah.
But what Margareta Vestager, I'm going to try to say her name.
Margaret
Vestager.
Danish.
Yeah, it's hard to pronounce right. But what the EU is trying to do is surprisingly protect companies and their competitive situation. Presuming that will ultimately benefit consumers.
Well, they're also, I mean, Vestager's case against Google is that it's not illegal in European or American law
to be a monopoly.
To be a monopolist. What is illegal is if you have a very strong position in one market to use that to favor another market. So the case against Google is mostly built around their travel service, where the Google search engine, Vestager has found, I think she fined them enormously, I think they've kind of acknowledged it, that Google was using it to promote their own services, which is obviously a catastrophe for other online travel services.
It was shopping, and I would agree now that because they bought IAT, Google's, it's funny, you would think they'd be chastened by their experience with shopping, but they seem to be doing exactly the same thing with travel.
And it's interesting that, you know, some of the most sort of vocal critics of Google are sort of mid-range, mid-sized American tech companies like Yelp.